This is the murder of Ebony Gilbert. This is your one chance to say something to her family. Your family brought you in. What would you say to Ebony's family?
Rest in peace, Miss Ebony. Sorry for your loss.
Why did you do it? You and other people are accused. Can you give us a reason? I mean, this is your one chance to explain to people so they can understand.
I would, but there ain't no point.
But there is. I think her mom would want to know. I mean, why the car was broken into. Is there a reason why you guys were just looking for quick money? I mean, people want to know.
I got money in my pocket.
So why was the car burglary taking place?
I don't know.
Did you plan it, or how did you pick the house where she lived?
I don't know.
Do you want to say anything about the other people involved? What about her mother? Her mother, who had to find the body. Anything you'd like to say to her mother?
Sorry for your loss, Miss Ebony.
Anything else you want to say?
Sorry for your loss.
Okay. Thank
I'm
you
not
for
a
your
monster.
You're not a monster?
I didn't do it.
You didn't do it?
No, sir.
But you're charged with murder.
Beaumont police telling KFDM 6 News they are leaving no stone unturned in their search for cold-blooded killers who took the life of a young woman, cherished by her mother, her large family, and a wide circle of friends. The accused gunmen, their chilling images captured on Ring doorbell camera video. The timestamp, Thursday night, about 8 o'clock. The crooks caught burglarizing a car outside a home, then shooting the homeowner when she stepped outside to see what was happening there. The victim, 39-year-old Ebony Gilbert, photos of her shared with KFDM by her family members, still shaken tonight after learning what happened.
This happened in Beaumont, Texas, a city of southern charm and community strength. It's the kind of place where neighbors wave from their porches, families gather after church, and people look out for one another. But behind the hospitality and Sunday traditions, there's a growing undercurrent of fear. In recent years, property crimes have surged. Car break-ins, home invasions, crimes committed not by strangers from far away, but by the very youth raised in the same neighborhoods. And on a quiet Thursday night, that fear became reality for one beloved woman. It was September 26, 2024. The sun had long set over Bennett Avenue, a modest street in North Beaumont. Most families were in for the night, doors locked, lights dimmed. But not hers. At 8:02 p.m., motion sensors clicked on. Ring doorbell footage began rolling. We see her front door creak open. A woman steps out alone. She sees shadows by her car. She calls out. They don't run. She gets closer. There's a brief exchange, then chaos. A flash. A shot. Another. She falls wounded. Crawling. Trying to make it back to safety. But she never makes it through the door. The people she confronted didn't take her purse. They didn't steal her car. They left with something far more devastating, her life. Her name was Ebony Gilbert. And what happened that night wasn't just a senseless killing. It was a tragedy that rocked Beaumont and exposed the brutal reality of a city struggling to protect its own. And today we tell her story. You're watching Crime Scene Exposed, where we go beyond the headlines to reveal the stories behind real crimes that tear through families and entire communities. If this story moves you, if you believe in justice and truth, consider subscribing. Every case we cover gives voice to the victims and shines a light where it's needed most.
What happened? Remembering Ebony for her beauty and her smile. That's her in the middle of the picture. Everyone describing Ebony as radiant, loving, a woman who would do anything for those close to her. Ebony's mother discovering her body this afternoon. Police and EMS rushing to the 3500 block of Bennett. That's between Bigner and Helbig shortly before 3. Crime scene investigators and detectives trying to uncover the circumstances, gathering all the evidence, including multiple shell casings inside the crime scene tape. A murder mystery until police were able to look at the surveillance camera footage. The images showing 39-year-old Ebony Gilbert interrupting a burglary of her car right there in her own driveway outside her home last night. When she steps outside and confronts the burglars, they shoot her at close range and then they run away. She struggles to crawl back into her home to call for help, but she can't make it and dies.
Before her name was tied to headlines and heartbreak, Ebony Gilbert was the kind of woman whose presence made a house feel like home. Her warmth wasn't just felt, it was remembered. The kind of warmth that wrapped itself around children waiting at the school bus stop. The kind of warmth that filled living rooms on holidays. The kind of warmth that held an entire family together when tragedy tried to pull it apart. At 39 years old, Ebony was more than a daughter, a sister, or a neighbor. She was a lifeline. A nurturer by nature, her life had long revolved around caring for others, especially after the heartbreaking death of her sister in 2008. When most people would still be lost in grief, Ebony stepped forward, not just to mourn, but to mother. She took her nephew in as her own, raising him with unwavering love and sacrifice. In the eyes of her family, Ebony didn't replace anyone, but she became everything. Her cousin, Jamie Schenkel, put it plainly. That was all the kid she needed, really. She never had biological children, but she didn't need to. Her capacity to love wasn't bound by blood. Her nephew thrived under her care, not just fed and clothed, but emotionally nourished. Supported, encouraged. She attended school events, helped with homework, guided him with patience. And in doing so, she honored her sister's memory every single day. But Ebony's love didn't end at her front door. She was that rare kind of neighbor who noticed things. The kid whose parents were running late? Ebony picked them up from the bus stop. Someone needed a ride? She was there. A mother overwhelmed. Ebony would lend a hand, no questions asked. In a neighborhood full of working families juggling long hours and tight schedules, Ebony was the quiet safety net no one had to ask for. She was just there. And then there was her family. Her bond with her mother was deep and daily. They spoke constantly, checked in on each other. Her brother? Just as close. They were each other's keepers, the way only siblings who've weathered tragedy together can be. Ebony was described as the glue of the family, the person who reminded everyone to show up, to forgive, to keep going. She was a woman of deep faith, grounded in her spirituality, active in her church community, and filled with quiet strength that comes from believing in something greater. She believed in doing good, in helping people not because they deserved it, but because they needed it. She was the type to say a prayer for you, even if you never knew it. And when she dressed, always elegant, always poised, it wasn't just style, it was pride. Pride in how she carried herself, in how she represented her family, her upbringing, and her values. People in the neighborhood knew her not as Miss Gilbert, but as Ebony, a name spoken with love. Kids looked forward to seeing her. Parents knew their children were safe around her. And even casual acquaintances remember her for one thing above all else, that smile. The kind of smile that could soften any room. That let you know you were safe, seen, and welcome. So when she was killed in the very driveway she used to pull into with groceries or holiday gifts, it wasn't just the loss of a person. It was the silencing of a heart that beat for so many others. Her mother, who had already experienced the unthinkable by losing one daughter, was the one who found her. Imagine that. Imagine carrying that weight twice in one lifetime. Losing two daughters, years apart, but in ways equally cruel. Her mother found her not asleep, not waiting by the phone, but collapsed near the door of the home she loved, her final moments spent trying to crawl to safety. That detail alone is unbearable, but it's not the only truth about Ebony Gilbert. Her story isn't just about how she died. It's about how she lived. It's in the neighbors who still pause at the sound of the school bus, half expecting to see her. It's in her nephew's eyes when he remembers her soft scoldings and joyful laughs. It's in the children she protected, the mother she called every day, the family dinners she wouldn't let anyone miss. It's in the quiet legacy of kindness, left behind by someone who never asked for recognition, but always showed up. And that's why this case matters. Because when we talk about victims, we sometimes lose the person behind the pain. We say names. We list ages. We read charges. But we forget the joy that name once brought into the world. Ebony Gilbert was not just a woman murdered in her driveway. She was a second mother, a daughter, a sister, a neighbor, a woman of faith, a quiet force of love. And her story deserves to be told with the same care, grace, and compassion that she gave to the world every single day she was alive. It was a quiet Thursday evening in Beaumont, Texas, the kind of still night where the loudest sound is the hum of a distant air conditioning unit and the occasional rustle of leaves. The neighborhood, tucked away off a well-traveled road, was the kind where people knew each other, waved from their driveways, and looked out for one another. That sense of comfort is what Ebony Gilbert had always cherished. Her home was her haven. But just after midnight, early in the morning of September 26, 2024, something shifted. In the glow of a security camera near the front of her home, movement flickered. 3 figures, young, cloaked in dark clothing, could be seen moving from car to car, checking doors. It wasn't random. These weren't just kids playing around. It was a coordinated sweep. They were casing vehicles looking for something to steal, any unlocked door, any overlooked item. Unfortunately, one of those cars was Ebony's. It was parked in her own driveway, like always. She probably hadn't thought twice about it. This was her home, her street, her safe place. But what happened next turned a petty theft into a nightmare her family would never wake up from. Sometime around 12:30 a.m., Ebony either heard a noise or received a ring notification that someone was outside. Like any responsible homeowner, like any protective mother, she stepped outside to check. Not with anger, not recklessness, but concern. She wasn't the type to ignore things or expect someone else to handle it. That's not who Ebony was. And that's when it happened. In the grainy black and white footage captured by her Ring camera, Ebony appears near her front door. Her voice can't be heard clearly in the recording, but her posture says enough. She was confronting them. Not yelling, not charging, just calling out. 3 figures appear briefly at the edge of the screen, then suddenly gunfire. At least one of the suspects opened fire. Without warning, without hesitation, they shot her. The camera caught it, just seconds. The abruptness is chilling. Ebony is seen falling to the ground, injured. The suspects vanish into the dark, leaving her behind. No shouts. No scramble to check if she was okay. They didn't care who she was. They didn't know she had just stepped out to protect the place she had built for the people she loved. They just ran. But Ebony didn't scream. She didn't panic. She tried to survive. Even as the bullet tore through her, she did what so many instinctively do when the body is failing. She tried to crawl back to safety. On her hands and knees, she dragged herself back toward the front door, toward the warmth of her home. Just feet away. If she could just get inside, just reach her phone, just call out, maybe someone would come. But she didn't make it. Just a few steps from the threshold, her body gave out. The driveway that had welcomed her home for years became her final resting place. And then silence. The night carried on around her, unaware of the tragedy that had just unfolded. It wouldn't be until the next day, around 6 a.m., that her mother, the woman who spoke to Ebony almost every day, would realize something was wrong. The lights were still on. The front door was cracked. No answer to her calls. She went over to check. And there, in the driveway, she found her daughter's body just outside the door. Not inside, not far from safety, just outside. It was the second time in her life she had experienced a horror like this, because in 2008, she had lost another daughter. Different circumstances, but the same unbearable outcome. To lose one child is trauma few ever recover from. But to lose 2, and to discover both of them, no parent is built to survive that kind of grief. The Beaumont police arrived quickly. The scene was secured. The footage was reviewed. What they found was both helpful and haunting. The surveillance footage showed 3 suspects involved in the attempted burglary. One of them, at least, had been armed. The video became a critical lead in identifying the attackers. But it also served as a stark reminder of just how fragile safety can be, even in the homes we trust most. Detectives would later reveal that this wasn't an isolated event. In fact, there had been a rise in property crimes across Beaumont in recent months, particularly in car burglaries and home invasions. In neighborhoods just like Ebony's, residents were increasingly on edge, unsure whether to call it paranoia or protection. But Ebony wasn't paranoid. She was right. Right to be concerned. Right to check. Right to care. And that's what makes her death feel so senseless. She wasn't chasing them down. She wasn't trying to be a hero. She simply wanted to defend her space, to say, "I see you," and hope it would be enough. But instead, she was gunned down for daring to notice, for daring to step outside, for simply existing at the wrong moment in her own driveway. The public's reaction was swift and heartbreaking. Neighbors were stunned. Many had seen her just days earlier, smiling, chatting. Some had dropped their kids off at her house. Others waved to her from across the street. Now her home was behind police tape. And the woman who had looked after so many was gone. Ebony's murder sent a ripple through Beaumont. She wasn't just another name in a crime blotter. She was the embodiment of what so many people fear, but never think will actually happen, that doing the right thing could cost you your life. And for her family, the grief was layered. They had to bury a daughter, a sister, a second mother, a protector, a woman who gave everything and asked for nothing. And they had to do it knowing that someone, maybe more than one person, made the choice to fire that gun. To take her life. For what? A few loose items from a car? A wallet? A backpack? The cowardice of it all was infuriating.
Leads, Crime Stoppers tips, trying to identify the suspects and get them off our streets and where they belong, in jail. KFDM on the story since this afternoon. Tonight, our Taylor Justice is back from the neighborhood, learning more about the life of Ebony Gilbert and her tragic death. Taylor?
Aaron, police were on scene when I left hours later, planning to work 24/7 to find Ebony Gilbert's killers, while her family, friends, and neighbors are sharing their memories.
Beautiful, caring, a loving daughter, niece, cousin, and friend. Some of the memories those close with 39-year-old Ebony Gilbert are sharing with us, so you will know why she mattered.
She was a very good person. She made Christmas for my kids last year, and you know, anything we need, she tried to help us out with.
Family members say Ebony's mom hadn't heard from her, so she went over to Ebony's home on Bennett Road Friday afternoon and saw something no mother should ever have to endure: her daughter's body. An unspeakable tragedy, one her mom has now been through twice. In 2008, she went to check on her other daughter in Orange and found her body. She had died from a heart attack. Neighbors now shaken by Ebony's killing.
My wife told me that she heard gunshots and she got the kids and put them on the floor and didn't realize that it was right next door.
Her final moments in life, Thursday night, captured on Ring doorbell camera video. Images of suspects police say were responsible for her death, burglarizing her car, shooting her when she walked outside to see what was happening. Police say Ebony tried to get back inside her home, but collapsed, unable to make it that far.
It's really scary because, I mean, it's like right in our back door. We always hear gunshots and everything, but to know someone got killed over something so senseless, you know, it just breaks my heart.
Now her family and friends uniting to support one another, remembering Ebony's love of family, church, travel, and pretty clothes, while police search for the men who took her away from so many people that cared about her.
My family is the straw behind it. Like I said, she was a good person. She took real good care of all of us. She helped us out as much as possible, and like I said, she will be missed.
Ebony was a plant operator in Orange and studying in school to better her life, a life taken at only 39 years old.
Police continued working around the clock, combing through footage, canvassing neighborhoods, and appealing to the public for information. The footage was released. The suspects were identified. And arrests would soon follow, but we'll come back to that. Because for now, what matters most is this. Ebony Gilbert was stolen from her family. Not because she was reckless. Not because she was confrontational. But because she cared enough to step outside. Because she lived on a street where she thought she was safe. Because she tried to protect what was hers. And the world is worse off for losing her. The investigation into Ebony Gilbert's murder began before the sun even rose. The moment police arrived at the crime scene that morning of September 26, 2024, they knew what they were looking at wasn't a random tragedy. It was a targeted confrontation gone horribly wrong, and they had the footage to prove it. From the start, the Ring doorbell video was crucial. The grainy black and white footage captured everything. 3 suspects lurking near the vehicles, the confrontation, and the fatal shots that ended Ebony's life. Investigators reviewed the footage frame by frame, looking for any identifying features, clothing, build, movement patterns. The community, shaken by the senseless killing, was desperate for justice, and detectives moved quickly. Within days, names began to surface. The video had circulated widely, with tips pouring in. But what truly moved the case forward wasn't just police work, it was a mother's decision to do the right thing. On Saturday, September 28th, less than 48 hours after the murder, Corey Shillow, a 21-year-old from Beaumont, was arrested and charged with capital murder. But this wasn't a case of him being caught on the run or hiding from law enforcement. In a moment both tragic and powerful, Shillow's own mother turned him in. Authorities confirmed that she brought him to the police department herself. No doubt conflicted, but knowing what her son had done, she chose truth over silence. That single act of courage helped set the tone for the rest of the investigation. In a striking moment caught on camera, Shillow, visibly emotional, apologized to Ebony's family as he was taken into custody. "I'm sorry for what I did," he said while being led away in handcuffs. But for a mother who had already buried 2 daughters and a family now forever shattered, the apology may have come far too late. Shillow's arrest was just the beginning.
But there is, I think her mom would want to know, I mean, why the car was broken into. Is there a reason why were you just looking for quick money? I mean, people want to know.
I got money in my pocket.
So why was the car burglary taking place?
I don't know.
Did you plan it, or how did you pick the house where she lived?
I don't know.
Do you want to say anything about the other people involved? What about her mother? Her mother who had to find the body. Anything you'd like to say to her mother?
Sorry for your loss, Miss Ebony.
Anything else you want to say?
Sorry for your loss.
Okay. Thank
I'm
you
not
for
a
your
monster.
You're not a monster?
I didn't do it.
You didn't do it?
No, sir.
But you're charged with murder.
Over the next 48 hours, 2 more suspects were taken into custody, both also 21 years old. Javonta Turner, arrested on October 1st, and Tydrick Davis, arrested shortly after. Turner initially denied any involvement in the murder. But in a brief interview, he issued an apology, not to the victim's family, but to his own. "I'm sorry to my mom and my dad," he said, his voice low, eyes downcast. It was a chilling reminder of how easily some people can overlook the real pain they've caused, focusing only on their own consequences. All 3 suspects were ultimately charged with capital murder, with authorities alleging that they were participating in the car burglary ring that turned fatal the moment Ebony stepped outside. Police described the attack in clear, unflinching terms. "It was a brutal, cold-blooded killing," said Sergeant Scott Swope of the Beaumont Police Department. "She didn't provoke anything. She stepped outside, said something, and they opened fire." That statement, blunt and heartbreaking, struck a chord with the community. It emphasized what made Ebony's death so devastating. There was no escalation, no fight, no threat. She merely confronted the suspects, and that alone was enough for them to pull the trigger. As the arrests unfolded, police revealed more troubling details. The suspects weren't strangers to the system. Each had some level of prior contact with law enforcement, though none had previously been tied to a killing. But detectives were also careful to emphasize one critical point. The investigation wasn't over. Authorities believe that other individuals may have been involved, either present that night or connected to the burglary ring responsible for terrorizing several neighborhoods in Beaumont. Police asked for the public's help, urging anyone with information to come forward. While some in the community felt a sense of relief that arrests had been made, the mood was far from celebratory. It didn't bring Ebony back. Outside the police department, candles, flowers, and notes began appearing on a makeshift memorial. Messages read, "Justice for Ebony, she deserved so much more," and simply, "Why?" In a statement released days later, Ebony's family thanked the Beaumont police for their swift action, but made it clear that their grief was far from over. "She was everything to us. A light, a protector, a sister, a daughter, a second mom. We miss her every second, and we want justice, not just for her, but for every family who's ever gone through this." Even seasoned detectives on the case struggled to hide their emotion. One officer involved in the arrest quietly told a local reporter, "This one hurt. You could feel it from the moment you got to the scene." It wasn't just a crime, it was who it happened to and why. A woman who meant so much to her family. A neighborhood that had trusted it was safe. A mother, a protector, a neighbor, gunned down because she cared enough to speak up. The legal process ahead will be long. All 3 suspects remain in custody, awaiting trial. Prosecutors have not yet indicated whether they'll seek the death penalty. Meanwhile, detectives are still reviewing surveillance footage, digital evidence, and community tips, trying to ensure that no one else involved slips through the cracks. For now, the arrests mark a turning point in the case, but not the end. Because justice for Ebony Gilbert is not just about courtrooms and convictions. It's about a community reclaiming its peace. It's about a family holding on through heartbreak. And it's about remembering a woman who simply stepped outside to protect what mattered to her and never came back. In the days following Ebony Gilbert's murder, the quiet neighborhood in Beaumont South End was transformed into a scene of mourning, disbelief, and deep reflection. For those who knew her, the grief wasn't just about losing a neighbor, it was about losing the very heartbeat of their community. Ebony wasn't just someone people waved to in passing. She was the kind of woman who knew your name, remembered your birthday, and showed up when it mattered. During the holidays, she would help decorate the block, making sure the kids had candy for Halloween and warm clothes for Christmas. If someone's child needed a ride to school or a hot meal, she didn't ask questions. She just stepped in. One neighbor, Marissa Coleman, who lived just across the street, shared through tears. Ebony helped me raise my kids when I was working 2 jobs. My youngest still thinks of her like an aunt. That woman had a heart bigger than this whole street. That's what made the sound of gunshots at 2:25 a.m. all the more horrifying. Another neighbor, who asked not to be named, recalled the moment she woke up to the popping sound echoing outside her bedroom window. She initially thought it might have been fireworks, but deep down, she knew better. When I found out it was Ebony, I broke. Not Ebony. Not someone like her.
What do you have to say? I spoke with the family. They're devastated. Someone died.
I mean, I don't know her. But I say R.I.P., like, rest in peace, lady.
What do you have to Davis joins the growing list of suspects. Police have also arrested Javonta Turner and DeCorey Shiloh for her murder. Ebony Gilbert was shot and killed at her home on Bennett Road last week. Police say it happened when she confronted 3 men who were trying to steal her car. Now, neighbors on Bennett Road in Beaumont tell us that shootings there happen all too often. So often, in fact, that they don't call 911 anymore. Kayla Chote spoke with one of those neighbors this afternoon. She joins me tonight.
Jordan, neighbors tell me, had they known their beloved neighbor, Ebony Gilbert, had been shot and killed last week, they would have called 911.
Hurting. I haven't been able to sleep because, it was just right there by my window and didn't know that it was my neighbor.
Victoria Lomax is still trying to make sense of the murder of her neighbor, Ebony Gilbert.
She was a very sweet woman. I love her. My kids love her. Like, if I'm not at home, she'll get them off the bus for me.
Lomax says she heard loud gunshots back to back the night of September 26th.
I heard about like 6, and I got my kids, and we got on the floor. Because I'm thinking it was just somebody driving by. It was so close. It was so loud. I was so scared.
She says she stayed glued to the floor for 10 minutes. Lomax's mother, who is visiting, says she now worries for her family's safety.
I never had no reason to be afraid for my daughter and my grandkids. But now, you just got to keep eyes and be aware of all things.
After living on Bennett Road for 9 years, Lomax is considering leaving.
I'm ready to move.
Lomax says the gunshots are so frequent that she and Ebony had a system. They would check in on each other every time they heard gunshots nearby.
Asked her, you heard that? She said, yes. This particular time, she didn't call.
Beaumont police say they know the community is shaken up over the murder.
Was going out to protect her property and was killed in cold blood. It is absolutely horrific, and it sends shockwaves through the community because it is everyone's worst fear. A true innocent victim.
And if you ever witness a crime, they urge you to call 911.
To never put yourself in harm's way, to intervene in a crime being committed against property. Property is never worth a life.
All 3 suspects now sit in the Jefferson County Jail, charged with murder, with bonds ranging from $750,000 to $800,000. In studio, Kayla Chote.
The tragedy didn't just steal a life. It shattered a sense of safety that many on the block had worked hard to build. This wasn't a neighborhood where people locked themselves indoors out of fear. Kids played outside. Families barbecued on weekends. Ebony's presence contributed to that feeling of security, a natural protector, someone who looked out for others. Now her murder has become a stark symbol of how even the most caring and courageous can become victims of senseless violence. Community members quickly organized a vigil in her honor. Dozens gathered in front of her home, candles flickering, faces lit by both flame and sorrow. There were prayers, gospel songs, and stories about how Ebony gave so much of herself to others. One woman recounted how, after her own sister passed, Ebony stopped by her house every Sunday to check in. She'd bring over a plate, sit with me, let me cry. Who does that anymore? People weren't just mourning, they were angry and scared. In a community already grappling with economic instability and uneven resources, the loss of someone like Ebony wasn't just emotional, it was structural. She was a glue that held people together. Her absence has left a void that will be nearly impossible to fill. Even those who didn't know her personally felt the aftershock. I'd never met her, but I saw how she treated people. We lost more than a neighbor, we lost a role model, said a local pastor who spoke at her vigil. In the wake of the tragedy, local churches, nonprofits, and city officials have begun organizing town halls and forums aimed at addressing the root causes of violence, particularly those connected to youth crime and community disengagement. But for now, the block remains quieter than it used to be. There are fewer kids playing outside, more lights left on overnight, more glances over shoulders, and above all, a shared understanding that everything changed the night Ebony Gilbert was taken. In the final moments of her life, Ebony Gilbert made a decision that came from instinct, the kind of instinct rooted in courage, pride, and a deep sense of responsibility. She heard something outside. She saw her car being broken into, and instead of hiding, she stepped out to protect what was hers. Ebony didn't know who she was facing. She didn't have a weapon, but what she had was heart. She confronted 3 armed men because that's who she was, a woman who stood up for herself, her family, and her community. And that's what makes this story so heartbreaking. Because Ebony did what so many of us might do, step outside to investigate something suspicious. But in today's world, that moment of bravery can turn deadly. One of the hard truths her case exposes is this: calling 911 should always be the first step when you see something off, no matter how familiar your neighborhood feels. It's a message we don't always want to hear, but it's critical. We all want to believe we're safe in our own space, but the reality is danger doesn't always announce itself. That night, Ebony's Ring camera became a silent witness, capturing the moments leading up to her murder. And while it couldn't save her life, it became the reason the suspects were identified and caught so quickly. Surveillance footage, often seen as just a deterrent, was a lifeline in this case. It's a powerful reminder of the value of home security tools, not just for protection, but for accountability. But even more powerful is the lesson in community awareness. Because Ebony's story didn't unfold in isolation, there were other reports of break-ins in the area in the weeks prior. This wasn't a one-off event. It was part of a pattern. And while no one could have predicted what happened that night, it raises the question, what if we were all more watchful, not just of our own property, but of each other's? A porch light left on, a call to a neighbor, reporting something that doesn't feel right. These are small actions, but they matter. Ebony's death also opens a wider conversation about youth crime, economic instability, and broken safety nets. The 3 suspects arrested were all just 21 years old. 3 young men with their lives ahead of them, now facing the weight of a murder charge. What leads someone to make the decision to pick up a gun, to steal, and to shoot a woman who posed no real threat? The answer isn't simple, but it's one we have to keep asking. Because until we address the root causes of violence, tragedies like this will keep repeating. And still, amid all this, there is light. In the way her community came together, in how her story sparked outrage, action, and conversation. Ebony's memory didn't fade in the days after the shooting. It burned brighter. She became a symbol of strength and a reminder that no one should ever lose their life trying to protect what's theirs. Her legacy is a call to do better, to take safety seriously, to look out for each other, to teach the next generation what it means to value life, not take it. She was more than a headline, more than surveillance footage, more than a tragic statistic. She was Ebony Gilbert, a devoted daughter, a second mother to her nephew, a woman of deep faith and compassion. Her final act wasn't one of fear, it was one of courage. And that is how she deserves to be remembered. Ebony's story is more than a tragedy, it's a wake-up call for all of us. Thank you for watching this episode of Crime Scene Exposed. If Ebony's story moved you, if her strength, her loss, and her legacy hit you the way it hit her community, then please help us honor her memory. Share this video, talk about her, say her name. And if stories like this matter to you, if you believe in remembering victims and uncovering the full truth behind these crimes, then please subscribe to Crime Scene Exposed. This channel is here to give voice to those who no longer have one. Every view, every share, and every subscriber helps us bring more attention to cases that need to be told. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware, and take care of each other.